The Evil Within redefines survival horror games, marking another major achievement for Shinji Mikami, the father of Resident Evil. He creates a chilling world with a unique perspective and unparalleled imagination, a world both familiar and strange, terrifying yet captivating. The story begins by imprinting deep fear into players' hearts. On this day, the Crimson City Police Department faces an unprecedented case. 4 officers, Sebastian, known as Uncle Seb, his partner Joseph, subordinate Kidman, and Connolly, head to Beacon Mental Hospital to investigate a shocking mass murder. As Uncle Seb prepares to contact headquarters, a loud noise suddenly overwhelms them, nearly causing the police car to lose control. Strangely, everyone is affected by the noise except Kidman, who remains calm. They soon arrive at the eerie scene at Beacon Mental Hospital. The only survivor is a doctor named Marcello, who is deeply frightened, muttering the name Ruvik repeatedly. Uncle Seb checks the surveillance and sees a ghost defeating 3 officers in an instant. When he wakes up again, he finds himself hanging. Like a lamb to the slaughter. He quickly grabs a knife from a pig's body to cut his bindings. While the butcher is distracted, he takes a key to escape, but accidentally triggers an alarm. The butcher grabs his toy and starts hunting him, catching up to Uncle Seb, severing his Achilles tendon, and locking him in a VIP room for special treatment. But Uncle Seb doesn't give the butcher any face. He escapes into the sewer for a thrilling adventure. He finally reaches a place with tomato soup, thinking he's escaped the butcher, but as soon as he gets ashore, the butcher finds him again. Facing fear, Zatov is carried away after 16 hits, but when he returns to the surface, he finds the city has collapsed. As he is shocked, Connolly urges him to get in the car. With no time to think, he escapes with Kidman, Dr. Tar, Marcello, and the psychiatric patient Leslie, while Joseph's whereabouts remain unknown. In this tense atmosphere, Leslie is extremely fearful, and the doctor constantly reassures him. Just then, the ghost reappears, and Connolly becomes ferocious under its influence. The car, controlled by time, falls off a cliff. When Uncle Seb regains consciousness, he finds himself in a strange hospital room, with a caring nurse attending to him. The nurse skillfully helps him sit in a gaming chair, and Uncle Seb is amazed by its features, instantly returning to the scene of the car falling off the cliff. But his companions are already gone. Uncle Seb immediately starts searching for them and soon finds driver Connolly. Connolly smiles back, saying, "Seeing this handsome guy, aren't you going to give a like?" Uncle Seb unhesitatingly gives 2 likes. Then his gaze turns to Leslie, who runs wildly like a hunted beast. Uncle Seb starts tracking him and soon arrives at a village where the residents have turned into monsters. Facing these monsters, Uncle Seb has no choice but to jump into the water to hide. After the monsters leave, he meets Dr. Teal, Marcello, who is also looking for Leslie. They share the same goal, and Dr. Marcello decides to distract the monsters while Uncle Seb seizes the chance to get a chainsaw to open the iron gate blocking their way. Together, they quickly find Leslie in a nursing home, but just as they are about to leave, the mysterious ghost reappears, and Dr. Marcello immediately recognizes it. The ghost is Ruvik, and Uncle Seb prepares to take him in when suddenly a stream of tomato juice descends from the sky, taking him to another place. There, Ruvik's torment and countless monster attacks await him, merely a prelude to the real horror, the appearance of Sadako. Although Uncle Seb escapes Sadako's pursuit, Ruvik's scheme traps him in a deep predicament. Fortunately, he is unharmed. Uncle Seb wanders like in a maze, focusing on various rooms. When he enters one, he unexpectedly finds Joseph soaking in a bathtub. Joseph quickly regains consciousness after dehydration, but cannot recall why he is there. Before they can leave, a sharp noise causes them great pain, and Joseph's hand suddenly reaches for Uncle Seb's neck. Uncle Seb is shocked to find Joseph. Joseph has mutated, but luckily Uncle Seb reacts quickly and successfully pushes him away. After some time, Joseph gradually returns to normal. The bizarre events along the way prompt Uncle Seb to quicken his search for an exit. During their exploration, they find Kidman trapped in a water tank. Seeing Kidman's life in danger, they immediately work together to open the tank. However, before they can speak to Kidman, the ground beneath them collapses. Uncle Seb hurriedly follows with a lantern. Fortunately, both are unharmed. They finally regroup and discuss finding a way out. Just then, a sharp noise rings out again, causing them intense headaches. They feel themselves being dragged away by Sadako in tomato sauce. Uncle Seb is separated from his team again, but inadvertently arrives at an unknown machine where Ruvik is conducting a mysterious experiment. Suddenly, the machine activates in endless, fantastical scenes. Flashlight slides through Uncle Seb's mind, and then he returns to the hospital room. The friendly nurse is still greeting him, but Uncle Seb's attention is quickly drawn to Leslie in the corner. As Leslie turns his head, Uncle Seb is transported to a new scene. In this new scene, Joseph inexplicably appears there. Before they can celebrate their reunion, monsters begin attacking them. The two immediately start fleeing. Along the way, they see Kidman taking Leslie to a mysterious church, and they follow closely. But inside the church, they can only hear Kidman's voice without seeing him. As they are puzzled, Joseph suddenly has a splitting headache and tells Uncle Seb he has a strong emotional impulse. Uncle Seb reluctantly gives him an injection, and then Ruvik appears, using his mind to control everything around them and separating Uncle Seb and Joseph. Uncle Seb is sent to a dungeon filled with miasma, where a monster called the Keeper is hunting him. Fortunately, Uncle Seb is no ordinary person. He successfully avoids a series of traps and reaches the exit. But just then, the scene suddenly changes, and he returns to the beginning of the story of Beacon Mental Hospital. Dr. Marcello is also there, explaining that this machine can connect everyone's brains to form a highly realistic virtual world where everyone can share emotions, memories, and perceptions. Ruvik is the god of this world. Uncle Seb suddenly realizes they are all in Ruvik's brain. At this moment, Ruvik launches an attack, sending the original hybrid to hunt Uncle Seb. Uncle Seb runs desperately and suddenly returns to the hospital room, narrowly escaping death. A painting on the wall catches his attention, but just as he is about to examine it closely, the hospital room suddenly shakes violently. Ruvik takes him to his hometown where his family's villa is nearby. Dr. Marcello and Leslie are also there. To open the iron gate inside the villa, Uncle Seb starts searching for clues and unexpectedly discovers Ruvik's true identity. Ruvik, originally named Ruben, is a descendant of the Victoriano family, a prominent noble family. Ruben was fascinated by the mystery of animal skulls from a young age. His research initially focused on dissecting small animals, but a tragic fire changed his life. Ruben's father ruthlessly deprived the villagers of their land, sparking their anger. It was a deep resentment, like a raging fire in their hearts. They decided to set fire to Ruben's family's barn as revenge. However, the cruelty of fate lies in the moment when the torch illuminated the barn. Ruben and his sister Laura were playing happily inside. Despite hearing the children's laughter, the villagers decided to proceed with their revenge. The fire quickly spread, engulfing the entire barn. Laura struggled to push Ruben out of the fire, sacrificing her life for Ruben's survival. After the fire, Laura tragically died, and Ruben's father locked him in the basement. For Ruben, who had lost his sister, this was undoubtedly a heavy blow. His feelings for Laura had surpassed ordinary sibling affection. The idea of resurrecting his sister grew deep in his heart, and he became obsessed with brain science research. Due to the Victoriano family's long-term donations to Beacon Mental Hospital, Ruben had the opportunity to meet Dr. Marcello. Dr. Marcello admired Ruben's research and became his mentor in brain science, providing him with numerous psychiatric patients as test subjects. Ruben's obsession with brain science, combined with the psychological shadow of being locked in the basement by his parents, led him to design a seemingly accidental car crash to murder and inherit the entire Victoriano family fortune. This wealth provided him with a continuous supply of test subjects for his research. After countless days and nights of research, Ruben achieved new heights in brain science. However, Dr. Marcello coveted Ruben's research results, secretly claiming them as his own and gaining fame in the academic world. Marcello's research quickly attracted a mysterious organization called Mobius. Their operations were secretive, with close ties to many authoritative institutions and prominent families. They recruited Marcello into their research team, providing him with ample funding and test subjects, promising to remove any obstacles to further his research. But Marcello's research results ultimately originated from Ruben, and he couldn't complete them alone. Mobius was unable to complete the research task, so he had to inform Mobius of Ruben's existence. Mobius provided Ruben with more advanced research equipment, hoping he could speed up his research. However, Ruben's goals conflicted with Mobius's. Ruben wanted to develop a device to transfer his sister Laura's soul, while Mobius wanted a device to connect multiple brains and share consciousness, intending to use it to control the world. Under Mobius's pressure, Ruben secretly researched his own version. But as time passed, Mobius became dissatisfied with Ruben's progress and began directly interfering with his work. Helpless, Ruben had to first create the device Mobius needed, naming it STEM. However, Ruben had his own plans, designing a protection mechanism that only his brainwaves could activate STEM. Mobius was displeased with Ruben's tricks and demanded he correct STEM's design, but Ruben refused. This angered Mobius, who extracted Ruben's brain to activate STEM, giving him the derogatory name Ruvik. Marcello was initially shocked and angry at Ruben's fate, but soon he saw STEM could continue running and began to feel conflicted about Mobius's actions. After STEM's activation, Marcello encountered unexpected problems. Most test subjects connected to STEM fell into brain death upon entry, and those who survived suffered severe psychological trauma. Surprisingly, all survivors mentioned a common hallucination, a ghost wearing a hat. Marcello suspected this ghost might be Ruvik. To solve this problem, Marcello delved into Ruvik's family villa to find related research materials. There, he unexpectedly discovered the blueprint for a wireless version of the STEM system designed by Ruvik. Marcello decided to use this blueprint to prove his worth to Mobius. He successfully built STEM 2.0 at Beacon Mental Hospital. Unlike the first version, which required a data cable connection, the second version could wirelessly access the STEM system. He also created a safe house in the virtual world using STEM 2.0, explaining why Uncle Seb would suddenly reappear in the hospital room when in danger. However, Marcello's exploration didn't end there. He discovered a special test subject, Leslie. Leslie's brainwaves were very similar to Ruvik's, allowing him to safely enter and exit the STEM system with minimal impact. Marcello speculated that Leslie might be the key to evolving the STEM system. However, this secret was already detected by Ruben himself, who marked Leslie as an invalid test subject to prevent this secret from being discovered by others. Unfortunately, Marcello still discovered Leslie's value. To repair the STEM system and prove his ability to Mobius, Marcello decided to risk activating STEM 2.0 and enter the virtual world with Leslie. By the time Mobius learned of Marcello's plan, it was too late. However, they were unwilling to give up on Leslie, a highly valuable test subject. They sent their agent into the STEM system to safely extract Leslie, and this agent was Uncle Seb's subordinate, Kidman. Kidman's childhood was filled with pain and neglect. His parents, obsessed with an extreme cult, showed him little care, making his life full of suffering and despair. At the age of 14, when he could care for himself, he chose to leave the home that caused him heartache and ventured into the bustling city alone. In this unfamiliar world, he began living a wandering life. It was then that an organization called Mobius appeared in his life. They took in Kidman, providing him with a warm shelter and education and training. For a child with no support, Mobius was his only family. When Kidman came of age, Mobius arranged for him to work at Uncle Seb's police department, not to give him a stable life, but to use him as an undercover agent to gather information from the police department. Speaking of this, we must mention Uncle Seb's tragic experience. Uncle Seb was an outstanding detective with a golden medal. He had a beautiful family, a wife named Myra, who was also a detective, and a lovely daughter named Lily. However, this beautiful life was shattered when Lily was fired by a ruthless fire. The mastermind behind it was Mobius. It turned out Myra was investigating a series of missing persons cases, and her investigation pointed to Beacon Mental Hospital. These missing people were taken by Mobius for Ruben's experiments. To stop Myra's investigation and take Lily for experiments, Mobius set a fire trap. Losing his daughter left Uncle Seb in despair, while Myra, convinced the fire was no accident, began investigating her daughter's disappearance. However, Myra also mysteriously disappeared during her investigation, leaving behind some evidence she found. This evidence contained shocking content, including secrets about Uncle Seb's superiors and other high-ranking officials. This evidence convinced Uncle Seb that his daughter's disappearance was no accident. After this, Uncle Seb regained his composure and began secretly investigating Mobius, which angered Mobius. As a result, Mobius sent Kidman to infiltrate the police department, to gather information and set a trap to lure Uncle Seb and his companions into Beacon Mental Hospital. With dual purposes, they planned to use Uncle Seb as a test subject, while also using Rubik to eliminate him. When the high-frequency sound inside the vehicle sounded, it was the signal for Marcello to activate STEM 2.0. At that moment, everyone was connected to the STEM system. Kidman could resist the noise's effects because he had taken Mobius's special drug, which protected him from Rubik's harm. But at the same time, Mobius could use this drug to enter the STEM system and monitor Kidman. Returning to Uncle Seb's perspective, he is currently in Rubik's mansion, having learned about the relationship between Rubik and Marcello. He finds Marcello and points a gun at him. However, Marcello calmly activates the machine in front of him, intending to use Leslie's and Rubik's similar brainwave characteristics to reverse back to the real world. But just as he is about to succeed, Rubik appears and stops them. In his final moments, Marcello realizes Rubik wants to use Leslie's body to resurrect, but it's too late to stop it. The original hybrid takes him away with a slap, and STEM 1.0 is destroyed at this moment. After defeating the original hybrid, Uncle Seb arrives at the ruined Crimson City, where all buildings have become ruins, except for the distant Beacon Mental Hospital, which still stands. Clearly, that's where STEM 2.0 is located. If he wants to leave alive, he must get there. On the way to Beacon Mental Hospital, Uncle Seb reunites with Kidman and they walk together. But a sudden headache causes Uncle Seb to mutate, forcing Kidman to shoot in self-defense. After some time, Uncle Seb returns to normal, but Kidman, worried about his safety, decides to act alone. At this moment, Uncle Seb unexpectedly hears Leslie's voice and finds him behind a door, but Leslie escapes before he can break in. Despite this, Uncle Seb is not without gain. He meets his partner, Joseph, who shows him a bus he found. However, just as they discuss how to start the bus, Kidman suddenly bursts in and starts it. Worse, an aberrant creature attacks from behind, tearing the bus's roof into a convertible. Fortunately, Kidman's excellent driving skills and Uncle Seb and Joseph's teamwork allow them to successfully shake off the aberrant creature. Once the vehicle stabilizes, Joseph shares his findings. He believes they seem to be controlled by some will, but the light beam from Beacon Mental Hospital remains. They conclude they must go to Beacon Mental Hospital to uncover the truth. However, their plan is thwarted by Rubik. Despite Kidman's best efforts to break, their vehicle is still controlled by Rubik and crashes into a house. Uncle Seb and Joseph are thrown out of the car, while Kidman is nowhere to be found. Uncle Seb and Joseph decide to split up. Just as they find an exit, Uncle Seb sees Kidman and Leslie near an amusement park. Kidman's appearance raises many questions for Uncle Seb, and he quickly follows. However, when Kidman sees the scene freeze, he immediately draws his gun and aims at Leslie. You might wonder why Kidman would attack Leslie, given that his original mission was to safely bring Leslie back on Mobius's orders. But after discovering Mobius's conspiracy in the virtual world, his faith begins to waver. Rubik's manipulation of his relationship with Mobius makes him more convinced that Mobius is not as benevolent as he thought. They hide deep crimes behind their facade. Along the way, he also discovers Rubik's attempt to resurrect by occupying Leslie's body. To prevent the terrifying Rubik from resurrecting, he decides to defy orders and eliminate Leslie. Just then, Uncle Seb draws his gun from behind, aiming at Kidman. Joseph also arrives on the scene to assist Uncle Seb. But suddenly, Leslie starts screaming wildly. A loud noise shatters the glass and he runs away frantically. Kidman fires but accidentally hits Joseph. Watching Leslie run farther away, Kidman chases after him relentlessly. Having lost Joseph, Uncle Seb can only head to Beacon Mental Hospital alone. After a harrowing journey, Uncle Seb finally nears Beacon Mental Hospital. Guided by Leslie, he advances towards STEM 2.0. At this point, Leslie seems to be possessed by Ruvik. When Uncle Seb reaches a familiar corridor, he sees a scene from the surveillance replaying. Ruvik suddenly teleports over and grabs Uncle Seb's throat. Fortunately, the lantern in Uncle Seb's hand plays a crucial role, and the flames quickly spread, engulfing Ruvik. The intense pain from the flames makes Ruvik release his grip, but he soon presents Uncle Seb with a new challenge. However, for Uncle Seb, who has experienced countless battles, this is nothing. His strong will and excellent skills allow him to successfully escape the predicament and return to Beacon Mental Hospital. When he reaches the top floor, he sees STEM 2.0 for the first time. Looking at himself and his companions in the bathtub, he has to accept the fact that he exists in a virtual world. However, he is quickly drawn by Leslie's screams. It turns out Kidman is pursuing Leslie. Uncle Seb immediately points his gun at Kidman. After Kidman shot at him and Joseph and pursued Leslie, he can no longer trust him. Just then, a piercing noise occurs, and Ruvik begins to exert his power, pulling all three into Ruvik's brain. Leslie has been absorbed by Ruvik, and everything around them starts to collapse. Uncle Seb has nowhere to go and can only sway with the shaking force. In the next moment, he falls from the sky and finds himself facing a hybrid core formed by Ruvik and all the test subjects. This is Ruvik's ultimate test for Uncle Seb. Facing this monster, Uncle Seb can only find a chance to survive between dodging and counterattacking. Below, Uncle Seb finds an armored vehicle and decides to use its weapons to attack the hybrid core. However, the battle doesn't last long, and the hybrid core's counterattack puts Uncle Seb in a more difficult situation. Just as he is on the brink of life and death, an old friend sends him a rocket. Uncle Seb uses this artifact to successfully defeat the hybrid core. But when Uncle Seb wakes up, he finds himself still in the STEM device. He quickly removes the data cable from the back of his head and walks towards Ruvik's brain, kicking it to the ground. Then he wakes up from STEM 2.0, surrounded by the bodies of Connolly and Marcella. He begins to doubt whether he has truly returned to the real world. Uncle Seb slowly walks outside, and Beacon Mental Hospital still maintains its original appearance. Just then, the door is suddenly pushed open, and the appearance of the SWAT team finally convinces Uncle Seb that he has returned to reality. But the sight of Leslie at the door and the familiar noise once again plunges him into confusion. Can Uncle Seb find his wife and daughter? Stay tuned for The Evil Within 2.